My name is Jenna, but you guys can call me Jen. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Hi, hello, happy Friday video. Today I'm going to be doing a video that is inspired by a TikTok, little bit of a book talk trend that was going around that I really liked the idea of, but I knew I would never be able to do on TikTok because I talk too much. So I figured might as well save it for a YouTube video. A couple people were doing what I would do every month of the year, is like what I would have picked as my book club book, where they like talk about like their favorite books of the month kind of a thing. And another one was like what would be in a book box if I curated a book box. So I'm gonna kind of do something like that, but instead of doing the idea of like doing like brand new releases for 2024, that was part of, I think, the book box one, like picking new releases you read in every month. I could not do that because I was not reading a new release every month. That is just kind of how that goes. But instead, I'm gonna essentially recommend you one book from every month that I think, if I could go back in time, I would put in a book club for us, you and me and my beautiful bookshelf people. We don't have a fandom name. I don't know what to call you guys. Just my beautiful followers, my beautiful friends. Okay, my lovely friends that me and you would be discussing every month. So I am picking basically from the first 3 quarters of the year. We're gonna ignore October, November, and December for a bit, but I do have a list right here and I got books all around me. So we're just gonna get into it. So welcome to Jen's Hypothetical 2024 book club picks. All right, so in January, it was kind of a toss-up between this one and I didn't even grab it. So this was the runner-up choice, which is The Surviving Sky by Kritika Rao. I was going to pick this because I would love to talk about this with people, but I think the one that would have gone over better with a book club is The Will of the Many by James Islington. One, this book is fabulous. James Islington is an incredible author and storyteller, and just the way that this is the first James Islington that I've read in my life, and I ended up just falling in love with it and falling in love with his storytelling, and then going onwards to read another one of his books this year, and hopefully we'll read another one at some point soon. But I really like this. And this also has gone over so well across the book internet. Like, people absolutely love it. So I think it would have been a great hit to start the year off right. And then we could all be yelling with each other about the end. And we wouldn't be like me alone at the beginning of January, just yelling about the fact that this book ended in the most bananas way. So this is the first pick for January. This is a little tricky to wrap up in like 1 or 2 sentences, but this is about Vis, who is an orphan kind of hiding who he is in this new land to him. He's kind of growing up in that way. He's adopted by this man who basically has him spy in this school for a number of different reasons, while also he's like, Vis is trying to get through this school and like rank really high. So it is academia, it's trials, it's espionage, it's intrigue, it's politically minded, and I'm so excited to see where James Islington goes from here with this, but I think this would have been a fantastic start to the year. Then in February, I have picked a runner-up and then the actual one again. I think these are the only months that I've done that in, because I just read so many good books at the beginning of this year. The runner-up was Penance by Eliza Clark. It is the runner-up because the one that I ended up picking is like hands down what I would have wanted to discuss with people. But if this was the only one that I had read in this month, and I had read this next book in this month, I would have picked this. But also, this is not fantasy. This is true crime. Or this is a very literary fiction-y aspect look at true crime kind of a thing. And I think this would have been very interesting to discuss. And I actually did read this for a book club in my real life. So I'm glad that we did, because we had a great discussion around it. But because that's the runner-up, the actual one that I pick for February is Chain Gang All Stars by Nana Kwame Adjei-Brenyah. This book was fabulously well done. It is adult Hunger Games like, and I say that simply because it is a like fight to the death type situation, but also is a fantastic look at society in a very interesting lens. Kind of like what the Hunger Games did, but this is obviously more adult, better, well done, all that kind of stuff. Standalone type of situation that just hits. It's an examination of the American justice system, and it's a futuristic society where prisons have gone so far that they've become like privatized and also commercialized, and they've become they've developed these games that are televised to basically have inmates fight to the death for a chance to eventually get out and like free themselves. No one has ever been freed from this system, but people end up entering into this, and there's different chain gangs where all of these people are like in different groups and they fight against other groups, kind of a thing, and that's the battles and stuff like that. And we follow a number of different characters in here, but our main characters, Stax and Thurwar, are sapphic and wonderful, and it's just, this one hits so hard, and I think it would have been perfect to discuss in a book club. Then we're kind of circling back to James Islington, which is a little bit of cheating, but I would have picked The Shadow of What Was Lost for March, mainly because there was no other books that I read in March that even came close to like which ones I would want to discuss with people. Now this would only be for my diehard fantasy fans because it is a chunky boy. But James Islington, as I said, incredible storyteller, is so good. The way that I read this almost 800-page fantasy novel in 2 days is a little crazy. Like, I read 600 pages of this in one day, in one sitting, because I could not put this down. So I think having read this with a bunch of people, with all you guys, would have been so much fun in March. And it would have been, again, really interesting to, one, kind of compare contrast with January's book, with The Will of the Many, and like to see how his first trilogy's first book stands up against his next trilogy's first book, kind of a thing. I don't actually know if The Will of the Many is going to be a trilogy or longer, but anyways, first of a series, kind of going head to head. This I liked even more than The Will of the Many. I fell head over heels for James Islington's writing style and storytelling. I could never say enough about this. This starts so small. We are following like 3 kids as things start to change and move. 2 of the boys go off on their own adventure. Our main character, Davian, is kind of the center of all this because he has powers that only these dead beings that caused a war have. And so he is kind of this anomalous figure, and they go on a little bit of an adventure, and then they leave their girl best friend behind who gets fucked up. She goes on her own journey, and she's amazing. And it goes from this tiny little insular moment, and it just expands, and it deals with time. We get the point of view of the quote-unquote believed to be bad guy in here, and it's so interesting to get his point of view as well, because it feels kind of almost like The Way of Kings prologue-esque. If you've read The Way of Kings, you kind of know what I mean, with like the multiple kings who can travel through time vibe. I need to read the second book and the third book in this series so that I can really get all of what James Islington is doing with this. But like, I think this would have been so much fun to read, and we would all been screaming over it and just in awe of James Islington's writing. And then we come to April, which, are we surprised? I am the spokeswoman for Empire of Exiles, okay? Like, at this point, I am the spokeswoman of Empire of Exiles. This is my favorite book of the year, one of my new favorite books of all time. I have read this 3 times this year, and I'm going to be doing a 4th reread because I'm also part of the book club, the podcasting book club for Empire of Exiles, with Erin M. Evans herself and Trevor Bettis on writing about dragons and shit. I have been invited to be the 3rd member. I am so fucking honored, and we are going to be doing this book club, kind of ripping this baby apart in the best way possible, learning the ins and outs. I'm so excited to reread each chunk right before each one, come up with my own questions and discussion points that I can ask Erin. I am in my element with this, but I want everybody to read this, so that is why I pick it for April. This book is phenomenal, and I don't want to hear a single negative about this book. This is the one book that I refuse to hear anything negative about. Do not tell me your problems with this book. Don't even come in the comments. I don't want to hear it. If you say something negative about this book, I will delete your comment. You have your own opinions, keep them to yourself. This is my baby. Do not come for me. I love this so deeply, and I think reading it the first time, which is what I did in April, and then I read it a second time again in April, I think having read it a first time and reading it with other people for that first time would have been exceptional. But my favorite thing would have been reading it the second time over with all of you guys. So the fact that I'm actually getting to read this for a book club with a bunch of people, I'm so fucking excited. So definitely this for April. This follows a cast of characters, but mainly we follow Quill, who is an apprentice scribe, if you will, who ends up getting tied into this mystery that is like a fucking onion. You just keep unraveling it more and more and more. He goes to the archives one day, the Imperial Archives, where we meet the rest of our cast of characters, except for one. We meet Amadea, we meet Tunuk, we meet Yini, we meet Bijan, we meet Stavio, we meet Zofia, we meet everybody, okay? We're also with Quill's bestie, Karimo, who, when Quill goes back home, or back to the place that they're staying, where this party is being hosted, watches his bestie, Quill watches his bestie, Karimo, murder somebody and then murder himself. He watches his bestie, or he comes into this room and he sees his bestie, Karimo, standing over two bodies, and then he murders himself. One body's not completely dead, but like a bloodbath, if you will. So it kind of kicks off this exploration because Quill's like, my best friend would never do that. He's not that kind of man. This is totally out of character. And everyone else going, you were literally in the room. Like, we saw him kill these people. What? So introduce this memory poison, a lost air vibe. It's so good, guys, please. Fantasy mystery is my favorite thing of all time. I have decided. Anyways, yeah, this would be April. In May, I would have picked The Poisons We Drink by Bethany Baptiste. This book, this was so good. I don't remember a lot about it now. One, memory is really bad. But from what I remember, the feelings I had when I was reading this book, I would have loved to have been able to talk about it with people and to kind of examine urban fantasy and this whole kind of darker turn. And also like to discuss the way that it was marketed as YA when it is really not fucking YA at all. It's got an older protagonist who's past high school age a little bit. She's like 18, 19. But it's the way that this whole book was. This is an adult fantasy book, and it was just marketed extremely wrong, in my opinion. And I think it would have been so interesting to really discuss the ins and outs of this book with all you guys. So this follows our protagonist, who is the eldest sister of two. She can make love potions at different frequencies. When she does, she gets ripped apart, and she has to do it with a lot of protections in place. And she does it essentially as like a business type of thing that's very illegal in this world. But her mother's like her business person, like the person who basically runs the family business. Her mother's also awful. Her mother dies at the beginning of this book, and it becomes actually not even at the beginning. Her mother, it's said on the back that it's like the catalyst for this book, but her mother dies like 100 pages in. And then it kind of kicks off this mystery that the only real thing that this mystery does is keeps pulling our main character further and further down, because she can't get away from these decisions that are just pulling her down into the depths of like a bad, morally villainous kind of character, even though she desperately does not want to be there. Like, she just wants to figure out who killed her mom. She just kept getting pulled further down. It is a fascinating book. I would have loved to talk about this one with you guys in a book club setting where we could discuss kind of character arcs and that kind of a thing, and like the marketing side of things and like what we think. I don't know. It would have been really cool to discuss. Then in June, I would pick The Sky on Fire by Jenn Lyons. So this book, I really liked. I really fucking liked this book. And I think it would have been a fascinating conversation to talk about standalone fantasy books in a book club with you guys, because this is a standalone fantasy book from an author who is known for a big epic fantasy series. And I have yet to read Jenn Lyons' other series, but I really fucking enjoyed this. But the really interesting thing to me is how varied the opinions are on this book. Now that I've read it and like loved it myself, absolutely ate this shit up. I love anything with dragons and a heist and really interesting cast of characters and very interesting world building and queerness and all that kind of stuff. It's got so many layers. The world building is fantastic. I love it so much. But the way that people are receiving it is interesting. So that's why I would love to do it in a book club setting, to really get all the opinions and hear what other people have to say about this book in a discussion kind of sense. So far, I've really seen mixed opinions about this. I don't know if you guys have, but I really liked it. I like the way that this is done, but I also see a lot of the criticisms that other people are giving about this book. I could see that, honestly. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's so valid. These are valid criticisms. So this would have been really interesting to do. But yeah, this follows our main character, Anarad. She is someone who at some point was executed from the back of a dragon. She survived though. And it's this world of dragon riders. It's a very fascinating magic system with how the riders and the dragons become bonded. And she Anurad is now living in the deeps, which is at the very, very bottom of this like mountainous community or mountainous society. Then she gets dragged up back to the top by this group of people who are hunting her down for ulterior motives that she wasn't quite sure about. They want her to help them perform a heist to steal from basically the dragon who's overlording them all. Cause like, of course, when you have dragons, you have hordes. Why wouldn't you want to steal from them, right? Like that is a perfect heist setup. So I really enjoyed this and I think it would have been a really cool conversation. In July, I had a really shitty reading month. You guys remember that? It was a time. But the book that I read right at the beginning was Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. And this would be the perfect book club book, okay? The way that we could have discussed the horror elements, the AI elements, the queerness and media elements, we could have talked about this for like 7-8 hours long together. In my head, we have. Like, this book is so fascinating. It is not my favorite horror book. I think like the actual horror or thriller elements weren't done like perfectly well, but holy shit, the conversation that was had about being gay in media, stunning. Horror, especially being gay in horror media, stunning. Thriller media, amazing. The AI was very interesting at the end. I really enjoyed this, and especially listening to the audiobook of this was really cool. I would have loved to read this with you guys and discuss this. So this follows our main character who, I can't remember his name. My memory is so shit. I can't remember his name, but he works as a horror writer for this Hollywood company, essentially. And he is known for his queer characters in media. And he's got this show that he's been working on that his executives are now telling him that he can't make his two main characters gay, even though they have been moving this direction. They're like, basically, you can make them gay, but you have to kill them off, or you back out of the gayness. And so he refuses. And in doing that, he starts being haunted by monsters from his movies and his media that he has made. And it's scary and terrifying. He's being stalked by them. He's being, like, people are being attacked by these things. Like, it is intense. And it's so good. I really enjoyed this. If you can handle body horror, pick this up. This would have been a really good conversation in July. And then in August, I would have picked a really, really tiny book because again, in August, did I read anything that was like super amazing? No. But The Lies of the Ajongo, great. Hold on. I did read good books in August, but discussion books, less so. This one I think is the only one that would be a good book club pick to do in August, out of all the August books that I had. Because yeah, there were some really good books in there. Like I read a 5-star, I read all this kind of stuff. This one I want to talk to people about because I think it's absolutely fascinating. Tiny little novella. It balances out the 700, 800 page novel that we read in February, like, or March, or whenever we read The Shadow of the Gods, right? Or Shadow of What Was Lost. Shadow of the Gods is John Gwynne. You know what I mean? This balances it. And I think this would have been a fascinating conversation. Why? Because I love the actual like execution of this book, the storytelling of it. And I would love to kind of dissect it with a bunch of people, getting all different opinions, hearing what everyone has to say. And I know this book has also been like a little bit of a low radar Booktok darling. People have loved it, okay? People have been just in love with this novella and its sequel as well. So I think it would have gone over really well as well. Like it would have been a really good book club pick to do. So this is the one that I'm picking. This follows a 13-year-old boy who lives in the City of Lies. And in the City of Lies, there is no water. At the beginning of this book, his mom becomes very, very, very dehydrated and very ill. And he decides that, yeah, there's never been a hero for the City of Lies, but that doesn't mean that there's never gonna be one. So he decides to become the hero that his town needs. He leaves, he goes into the desert, and he starts discovering a lot of shit. And that is all I'm gonna leave it at, because this was so good. And I think it would have been a fantastic read to discuss with all of you guys. And finally, in September, our final book club book of the first 3 quarters of the year would have been The Stardust Grail by Yume Kitase. This is the only sci-fi on this entire list, other than Chang'an All-Stars, which is more dystopian than sci-fi, even though dystopian falls under sci-fi. It's fine. This is the true sci-fi, because this is in space, baby. Like, let's go heist in space vibes. I think this would have been fascinating to talk about with you guys because of the way that this story is crafted, the elements that are used in it, and also some of the choices that Yume Kitase did in the second half of the book. I think that would have been so interesting to discuss with a big bunch of people because I've heard mixed reviews about what people think of the last half of this book. A lot of people think that the pacing failed at the end. A lot of people thought it was a banger. I enjoyed the fuck out of this book. There's some things in the second half that I don't particularly love, but I loved this book top to bottom. It is a fantastic read. It reminds me of a Becky Chambers-like universe. I loved it. All right, so this follows our main character, Maya, who is a grad student at the beginning of this. She's decided to leave her thieving ways behind, but wait, a book shows up that is extremely intriguing to her and basically proves that what she has been looking for the past however long with her best friend, the Stardust Grail, actually does exist. So she goes back out into space, steals the book, and is like, okay, we are finding this fucking grail, and then I'm done. And that's what this is. It's great, okay? This book was so fantastic, and I think the conversations that we would have had all together would have been really, really, really fun. But okay, my friends, let me know in the comments if you want me to actually do a book club. I think it would be really cool one day to do a book club all together. I think that would be really, really, really fun. So, you know, potential future stuff. But let me know, truly let me know in the comments what your pick for the month of September would be to run a book club around. I think that would be a really fun comment. Or if you didn't read anything in September, August. Between August and September, pick a book from those 2 months and tell me what book you would run a book club around and why. I think that would be so cool. So let me know in the comments that. But anyways, my friends, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down below what you thought as well. Make sure to like and subscribe, and your girl is officially monetized. So we've made it, friends. I've officially been monetized on YouTube. So thank you guys so much for watching my videos and for sticking around and deciding to follow me on this little corner of the internet and reading my books that I've written and all that kind of stuff, just continuing to support me. I have been feeling so overwhelmed with love and joy recently. Just good things are happening. You guys are the best, and I love you so very deeply. And I will catch you in another video very soon. Stay kind and keep on reading.